Carver has a very serious foreclosure problem that I think is being overlooked by the state and federal government.
Foreclosures, there's an awful lot of them. It's an eyesore.
You know, children wander, and if there is an old decaying house with a roof starting to cave in or something like that, it could potentially be a health risk.
With those vacant homes, you know, we do have probably a higher risk of fire potential and safety concerns with them.
The number of police response increases to the neighborhoods where there are foreclosures and vacant homes. Anytime there's vacant properties, it opens up the opportunity to property crimes.
Carver has been very aggressive in trying to take care of this tsunami of foreclosures across the country. Jack Hunter in particular has approached us to try to get information to help solve people's problems. So what we've done is provide every month a listing of foreclosure deeds and a listing of foreclosure notices. Now, foreclosure notices are the first document we receive at the Registry of Deeds that lets us know that somebody is in trouble, that they've actually, if that is not resolved at that stage, the lender will then file a foreclosure deed, which is the takeover of the interest from the homeowner. So those two documents are what we have at the registry to basically see what is happening with each individual property within Plymouth County. Carver's used that information, the number of foreclosure deeds and notices for Carver. In the year 2010, there were 45 properties in Carver taken back by their lenders. There were 91 homeowners who were notified they're in trouble. In 2011, the number of foreclosure deeds dropped, which is a good thing, down to 39. The number of foreclosure notices dropped significantly, also down to 50. And then we have the 2012 numbers, really the most recent numbers, other than a few monthly numbers. And the number of foreclosure deeds, again, the properties taken back by their lenders, dropped to 28 homes. And the notices jumped up a little bit. The bumping up and down of the numbers have been really caused by changes in legislation, changes in lenders' policy based upon legislation that in many cases now requires them to try to modify a loan and only go forward if it is more cost effective for them to foreclose than it is to modify. And I think over these years, even these limited 3 years, you've seen changes based upon legislative changes that have come into play.
As the chief of the department, you know, my job is the residents, is to care about our residents and protect them. So a neighbor will call in and say, I hear the fire alarm sounding, you know, a couple houses down or next door, I think they have a fire problem. Or there's water coming out the front door of the house. Those are emergencies that we would respond to. Sometimes it's hard for us to tell if they're vacant or not. So when we're called to respond to a fire incident to a home, we have to assume that there's people that do live there, and that there are people that could be inside it. So anytime we put firefighters on the road in fire vehicles, that's a risk that they could get hurt, you know, responding to or from an emergency incident. And also when they enter the home, you know, their job is to search and protect the residents. So not knowing if there's someone inside or is, you know, after the fact, if a firefighter was to get hurt, you know, doing a search inside a home just to find out that no one lived there, you know, is obviously a sad statistic and fact that does happen.
I live in the Crystal Lake area of Carver, and it's a very quaint, rather small area with a lot of houses. It's a converted cottage area, and it's a nice area. It's a really neat area. In fact, but especially in the summer on a Friday or Saturday night, there are always cops in the lake. Always. I live not far from a house that has a bit of a reputation as a drug house. And I don't know that for a fact, but no matter what, the fact that there's a rumor about it has a negative impact.
I think first of all, we unfortunately have a lot of areas in town, the Crystal Lake area, the Bates Pond area, a lot of the real tight community developments that were built back in the early 70s through the mid 80s, where the zoning in town of Carver was very small. As you know, right now we're 60,000 square feet per lot. Back in those days, anywhere from a quarter acre all the way up to a half acre, most of the developments fall in that scenario. It's very hard to meet the Title V setbacks the state currently has in place in some of those small little lots. So when you have a house that might be worth $130,000 and they owe $200,000 on their mortgage, and then they're being told they have a $10,000 septic system to put in on top of that, there's a lot of crying, and I understand that.
Had some calls where there's been vacant homes. Neighbors have called in concerned that drug users are breaking into the home as a place to use their drugs out of the public eye. Also, they'll be breaking into it to steal copper, the wiring, fixtures, things like that that they can sell. They're trying to make a buck so that they can keep their drug habit going. The other thing that people don't realize sometimes is vacant houses. We had one that we believe was being used for what I'd call a drop house. What was happening is a drug dealer would use the property, knowing it's vacant, to make exchanges with other drug dealers. So they'll pull up, they'll leave a package, and they'll either meet there to actually exchange, or they'll leave it and pick up the money, and it keeps it out of our eye as well as the neighbor's eye. So it is very important for neighbors to be calling us when they see suspicious vehicles in the area. There's been a lot more stress on the police department because we don't have that many officers. We now have properties that are becoming an opportunity for thieves or people to do illegal activities at. It's also a concern for the neighbors because they don't want issues going on. They don't want vandalism near their property, decreasing their property values. So there's been more and more of a demand on us to make sure that these properties are being checked on a regular basis. The other thing that I've noticed is we're getting calls to deal with safety issues as well. For example, I recall one house that was foreclosed, had an in-ground pool, and somebody took off with the fence. So now we have a safety issue where there's no fence around a pool. There is an increase on the budget in that we have to investigate these. If a bank owns the property and we have to investigate it, it's just the bank's the victim. It's no different than a homeowner being a victim. And investigating these type of crimes is very time consuming. It takes a lot of time to go and check scrap yards, to check pawn shops, to see what's showing up there, and then to work on developing suspects and building a case. What the taxpayer don't think realizes is there's ripple effects with this constantly. My officers do an investigation and they take out charges. The ripple effect is then, it's usually costing me overtime, which is your tax dollars. On top of that, we go to court when we do make arrests or if we need to do search warrants, and court time's usually on overtime for the officers. So it's stressful for them because it's a lot more work and we have a lot fewer people. But it's also stressful financially, I think, over on the town, as it's constantly costing us more money. There are a lot of ripple effects to this that I don't think people see. Yeah. And just think about any time you've driven into another town or city. When you drive by and you see vacant storefronts, you see vacant homes, you tend to get the feeling that the community itself isn't paying attention or doesn't care. And if in the back of your mind you're going to do something bad, you figure you're probably not going to get caught because no one's going to care. It's actually the basis of community policing called the broken windows theory, where if I leave one broken window broken and don't fix it, then somebody's going to break the next pane and the next pane, and it just continues and it has a ripple effect. So there are a lot of effects on just one foreclosure in a neighborhood can really affect all the other houses, if nothing else, just the quality of life. So it's important we keep these houses filled, and hopefully with residents that want to take part in the town and make the community a great place that it is.
have a program that we're proposing at town meeting that we think will help address the foreclosure problem we have in Carver. Most of the programs from the state and federal government are going to cities and more urban areas, what they call gateway towns or gateway cities, and Carver's left alone. We are ranked at the last study done that we are ranked 7th per capita in Massachusetts with foreclosures. It's a serious problem. We've come up with a way, we hope the town meeting will agree, that we can use CPA monies, Community Preservation Act monies, to allow us to partner with a nonprofit to purchase the properties, some properties, from banks that have abandoned them, and there's a host of them, and then we will rehab them and sell them to first-time low-mod homeowners. We're asking town meeting for $150,000 out of CPA. Our portion of the monies would only be for the rehab. We're hoping to pull in a nonprofit who has leveraged financing to purchase the property. So our monies together would be used to purchase a property, say at $100,000, and then it might cost $50 to $70 to rehab it, and then we sell it for $170,000. We get our money back, the nonprofit gets theirs, and we move on to the next property. So even though we're asking for $150,000, by recycling the money after we sell the house, well, we may not need to come back to town meeting for quite a while, if at all. So it's a pretty positive way of using money. There may be instances where the house may need more rehab than the sellable price is, and so we're going to underwrite it using this money. So in other words, if we buy the house for $100,000, but it costs $100,000 to renovate it, and we can only sell it for $180,000, so we're going to lose $20,000. But we think in the long run, the benefit outweighs that, and it gets the properties back on the tax roll. It helps the property values in the neighborhood. It renovates and keeps people working. We're going to prioritize for Carver contractors to do the work. And we offer housing for people that need it and are looking for an opportunity. And lastly, it helps with our affordable housing inventory. So we think it's a win-win. And as we sell these houses, we get most of it, if not all the money back, and we can use it again. So it's almost recycling. It's just a positive way of trying to, and a local way of trying to attract the problem. We're hoping actually this kind of program can be used across the nation, if not Massachusetts at least, with CPA monies, because we don't know of any other program of use of CPA monies like this. So we're hoping on June 3rd at town meeting that if you're at town meeting that you'll vote in favor of this.